Hey, what's up, everybody? So we are out here today, and I'm actually doing this in the way I normally would do it, but we're out seeing I Saw the TV Glow. Well, I'm out here seeing this as people I normally go see the movies with and do all this stuff with. One, I'm not sure if this is their type of movie. Two, they're out of town. So I'm going to the movies by myself today, which is always an odd thing. I'm not used to doing that. I'm like that type of person that likes to go to things with people and not do a whole lot of things by myself. But hey, I really want to see this movie. It's got a wider release right now, so it's easier to see than it would be for other movies, because last time when I was going to go see it the first time, it was at some small theater in San Francisco, and which really, it's not a super small theater. It's an Alamo Drafthouse, so it's bigger than probably some of the more artsy movies. But just where it's at and getting to it, it's a pain in the ass. It's a fucking first world problem, okay? But I was really interested in this movie when I saw the trailer. Now, it has probably one of my most mixed actors in the movie. And oh god, his last name is Smith, and I always forget his first name. But the Detective Pikachu guy, he's such a mixed actor for me that there's times where I really like him, and there's times where I just don't think he's putting his all into the movie. But this seems like the type of movie that it's that like Michael Cera type of thing where it's like awkward for the most part. So I don't know what to think, but I thought the trailer looked pretty cool, right? I thought it was interesting. It's a little more artsy in terms of what it is. I believe this is an A24 movie, so we kind of know what we're getting into. And again, A24s are hit or miss for me. I really enjoy a majority of the A24 movies. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but there are some that are just either not marketed the right way in terms of what they are, or they're a little bit too artsy for me, and it's just like, okay, I get it. I get what you're kind of doing. And the worry is that this is going to be that second part, but I don't know. I'm not sure if it's really going to be. So I'm just here. I hope I enjoy it. And then when, we come back from, seeing the movie and the break, then we'll get into, spoilers and everything else. And we'll kind of mix it up like we have before. So I hope to see you guys in just a little bit. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm back from I Saw the TV Glow. And so there's a bunch of things, and that this movie is just, I know I'm like pausing and like thinking about things and going through this stuff because I'm still like thinking about the movie, even when I left the movie. And I sat, normally I sit through the credits sometimes. I'm like, oh, maybe there's something in there. There's not really anything at the end of the movie, so it's not something that you need to wait for. And I kind of was hoping that there would actually be something just because of the way the movie flowed. I think that having something a little more might have done a trigger with the way that the ending was, in terms of being giving like an aha moment. If something that like just makes you like, oh, okay, I totally get it. And the thing is there's a lot about the movie I totally get, but I'm going to talk about those in the spoilers. I don't want to talk about them during this section of the film. Overall, I think, and this movie is going to be super polarizing. I think just in general, right? Because like I said before, and Justice Smith is the guy that I'm talking about. I don't know why. I had a fucking mind blank on that. And even when I was sitting there before the movie's going, oh god damn it, it's Justice Smith. I should have just filmed myself because there was nobody in the theater. Should have just filmed it for a second and been like Justice Smith before the movie started, and then come back here and we're at this part. But yeah, I didn't look that up, or it didn't pop up in the title, if you believe that. But it's true. But again, it's an A24 movie, and for some people, A24 movies are, everything about them. There is always this sort of like, I want to say like class when it comes to an A24 movie that is kind of expected to be independent, expected to be a little weird, a little bit artsy. But not every A24 movie is exactly that, right? They've done a good job overall with comedies, with horror, with dramas. It's just been a good film company, right? But they're polarizing. They really are. And it comes down to sometimes subject matter, I think. And this might be one of those where it is subject matter that is going to turn some people off. I personally don't care one way or another. I'm not, and that's, maybe that's a harsh way of saying it, but like,
The subject matter, I guess what I'm trying to say, subject matter doesn't bother me in this movie. And I think that in terms of weaving that tale and telling that tale, I think it's pretty good. I think it's overall pretty good. And then the theater itself was pretty empty. I mean, there were maybe a total of 10 people in the whole theater, and it was one of the smaller ones, fit like 69 people. So, it was nice to kind of have this, and everybody, it seemed like a majority of the people at the end of the movie were very happy with the movie. And that's good to see, and I can understand that. I can. But like I said, I think this is going to be extremely polarizing, and I'm not going to say it's because of the subject matter. I think there is going to be some that's because of the subject matter in the film, but those that aren't looking too deep into it, um it's just the way the movie flows. And I really felt the first act dragged a little bit, and then we got some good little nuggets in the second act, and then the third act, I'm not totally satisfied with the ending. I understand it, and I'm going to explain that in the spoilers because I think it fits the movie, but I just don't find it satisfying. Like as satisfying as it could be, because I again, without spoiling the movie, it's really, really, really hard to not spoil the movie because of what everything takes place, right? And if you don't know anything about this movie, the movie itself is basically about a young kid, Owen, and him kind of growing up. It's definitely a coming of age type of movie, and he is interested in watching this show called The Pink Opaque, right? And The Pink Opaque is something his parents don't want him to watch. His mother makes him go to bed early on Saturdays because at this time in the movie, he's only in the ninth grade. And then as the movie moves along, he ends up meeting Maddie, and Maddie is totally obsessed with the Pink Opaque, and the two of them form a bond over it. And it's kind of the story of that. And it's a story of Owen growing up, basically, and using this as a background. Is it 100% horror? Sometimes, but overall, it's not. I think this is just a straight coming of age movie with some tinges of horror elements, but it never reaches that. And if you're going into it, especially that they're dropping it within a genre, and again, if you've only seen a couple of my reviews, and you've never really listened to the podcast before, and you don't really know my stance on horror and why I love horror, I'm gonna say it here. Horror has this ability to mask everything that it wants to tell in terms of its story, in terms of its characters, in terms of the world, its politics, whatever it is. It has this ability to mask that with the macabre, with the gross, with the gory, with the scares. Has all of that, but can always tell a very poignant story. But sometimes I feel that people label something as horror when it doesn't really belong. And I'm not gatekeeping here. I'm really, hopefully, you don't think that I am, but because it has certain elements in it, it automatically gets tagged with horror, and it doesn't need to be there. Like, this could have just been a drama, honestly. And that's where I kind of like set it in. So if you're expecting to go in and to see a horror, and not, I'm not saying that everything in the fucking world needs to be, shock drama, jump scares, all that's like the stereotypical stuff of horror. It doesn't need to be. And maybe there's a little bit of psychological horror in here, but I just didn't feel it, right? And there were a couple of scenes that did stand out that were in that vein. There's one in particular that I absolutely love in this film and the way that they did it, but it's not enough to land it into there. And I really think that if you want to make this a psychological drama, good. I think it kind of fits that mold a little bit better. But is it good? Like I said, I think people are going to love this or they're going to hate it. I just don't feel like there's a person like me that's right in between, because I feel that there are some strong performances and some weak performances in this movie. And that's really what's going to drive it home. I think that Justice Smith is good for what it is. And again, he is a very polarizing actor to me. Either I really like his performances or I really don't, right? And what do I mean by this? And I have to choose two things that are really poppy that are in my realm, right? In terms of like just in general. So if you've ever played the game The Quarry, which is basically like a movie game, right? You're basically watching a movie, you're making decisions, and you're going through, and he's in it, and he is so flat, it is ridiculous. I hate his character. I hate his acting in that movie. It is terrible. I just did not like it, or in that game, right? And I get it. It's voice acting versus actual acting, but when you're using the characters, the actors themselves as the caricatures of the people that you're seeing on screen, like I think you have to kind of nail it. And he just like seems like he phones it in. And there's been a couple of movies where it's kind of been like that for me. And on the good side, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, because he always kind of plays like, again, I called him a Michael Cera earlier, and I kind of think he fits that role where he's kind of like the awkward guy that's there. He's like a Jay Baruchel, but not quite that, right? He just, again, he's like a mix between, I would say this, Jay Baruchel and Michael Cera, where it's kind of the same roles, right, that he does. And he kind of does that in the D&D, that's Honor Among Thieves, but he is fucking excellent in that movie. He's my favorite character in that movie, and he does a phenomenal job for what is being presented with him. And yes, it's a very pop movie. It's not an artsy movie. I get it. But when it comes to like Owen in this role, he has to fit a certain note, and Justice Smith fits that note and does the note well. But the scenes where like he's outside of that note, he just nails it. He nails it so good. And I'm like, man, that is what I want to see all the time from this guy. And then there's other scenes where he has to be this character. He has to be what Owen is. And it just feels boring and lacking. And he has to drive your movie. And then you have the actress that plays Maddie. And I'm sorry that I don't have the actress's name in front of me and off the top of my head. It's probably something I should have researched. But like, I feel like she's going to be the determining factor from some people, whether they like her or not. I was not the biggest fan of the character till about the end of the movie. And then I was like, okay, she fits and I get it. But it's just the way the character's being presented. I just could not get behind it. I couldn't find anything for myself personally to latch onto to create a bond with. And a lot of that has to do with the topic of this movie, right? And again, we're going to talk about it in the spoilers, where I don't have a connection to that. I just don't. It's not in me. It's not, I don't know anybody that has that and I'm saying it in a way, this sucks because I'm saying it in a way so I don't spoil this, right? And I definitely, it's going to be like the first thing I say in the spoiler section. But the fact that I don't have anybody in my life going through this. That's a better way to say it. Yeah, I don't have anybody in my life that is going through it. I personally am not going through it. I don't, I'm not saying that I don't understand it. I know a lot of people that they have to struggle with this, and I support what they do, but because I need to have some type of connection in there and I don't have it, I lose that with Maddie. And then as we get towards the end of the film, I understand her character a lot better, especially as things are revealed. So I think, like I said, I think that she is part of the reason that some people are going to like it or hate it. I think that Justice Smith's performance is also going to be a part of that. And I think a lot of it is going to have to do with just the flow of the movie. If you're just looking at it from a perspective of film, if you're not trying to look at other messages that are in it, if you're looking at that, there's going to be people that absolutely adore this movie, and this is going to be one of their favorite movies of all time. 100%, I think that is going to happen with a lot of people. And then other people, they're going to dismiss it, and they're going to call it trash because of that topic. And that sucks, because there is a lot of merit that's here that needs to be addressed in terms of filmmaking, in terms of story writing. And I'm not saying it's the best movie ever, but it's not a bad movie either. So that's why this is getting a 3 out of 5, chess projections for this movie. I think that it's a good movie. It's not a great movie, right? And I really wanted it to be a great movie. And I was really enjoying it in the beginning. And the beginning really felt like a slice of life type of thing that we were going through. And I was kind of understanding. And I remember seeing something, I think that partially ruined it for me, because I kind of guessed where things were kind of going very early on because of the trailer. And there's things that are written in the trailer that automatically, like, I hate. I hate that you have to spell that part out. I really wish you hadn't. And I wish you would have let me enjoy figuring that stuff out. The ending is probably going to be controversial to some, and I'm still struggling with it. Honestly, because I don't know whether or not to say it's brilliant or it doesn't work for me. Right, I'm right there in the middle, and that's why. And ultimately, that's why I kept going back and forth as I was driving back to get ready to record this. Was what does it strike for me or does it not? And because I can't definitely say one way or the other, like it's on the teeters of going to a 4 or going to a 2. Therefore, it's just going to sit right in the middle for me as a 3. I think if you know anything about this movie and it interests you, go see it. You have a chance, watch it. If it comes on VOD, watch it at that point. If there is something with the subject matter as you delve into it, or if you watch the spoiler section and you're like, oh, that's just not for me, then the movie's not going to be for you. The people that I normally go see the movies with, and I mentioned this before, it was with A24 and it was with, God, what was the name of that movie? It had to deal with a red door that was on there, and it was a lot more about psychosis than anything else, and it portrayed as a horror movie. It Comes at Night. Okay, I knew I would get through it when I get to it. So we went and saw It Comes at Night, and they were really interested in it because of the trailer. I was really interested because of the trailer as well, but I was like, there's got to be something a little more to it. At the end of the film, I came out really loving it. And I was like, wow, that was nothing like what the trailer was, but man, I thought that this was really good and really well done. And they came out of the film thinking, oh, this is terrible, because I was duped into what type of film it was going to be. They said it wasn't a bad film, but they were upset by the fact they got duped. I think that would happen this time as well. And I don't think it's going to be about subject matter. It's going to be about what does the trailer show and what did we actually get, right? And I think the lack of it being a horror movie is really going to also hurt some people. But across the board, critics are loving this to death, and I think that it's going to have a very strong fan base as well. So, again, ultimate recommendation is interested, go see it. If you're on the fence, just be wary of what you're going to get, and maybe you should still go see it. If you're just not that interested even by the trailer, it's just not for you. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, we're going to be jumping on into the spoiler section. So if this is the last time that I talk to you in this video, I'll see you soon. Make sure that you're following everything. All the links are down below. Thank everybody again for all the subs and everything else. I really do appreciate it. And so now we're going to move on into the spoilers. Okay, hey everybody, this is the spoiler section. You've been warned before, and you probably got warned with a little intro to the spoiler section that's there, right? And so I do want to address the big thing that I was talking about for the whole time. So the movie itself is about transitioning, right? Transitioning one way or another, and when I mean that, it's, about transitioning yourself, right? And that Owen is possibly fighting himself. It's under the guise of, this TV show, and is this TV show real or not, right? And is he a part of it, or is it really about the person that's inside of him and what Maddie is trying to bring out of him? There's a section of the movie where, like, they're sitting on, and it's in the trailer as well, and they're sitting on these bleachers, and she looks at him, and she's talking, he says at one point where he's like, I couldn't say more than 3 words to her at any time. And now they're sitting there on the bleachers together because he wants to go over. His mom still won't let him watch the show. And his dad, believes that, oh, that's a girl show. You shouldn't be watching that, right? And let me tell you right here that I would fucking watch this show. Everything that they do with that in the movie, with the pink opaque, it was like fantastic. And it really gave me this nostalgia boner for this like time period of my life, because that would be me with the X-Files right back in the day. This movie takes place in the late 90s. About 96 is a majority of the movie, and it does move ahead 8 years after that, and it starts probably about 94 when he's in the 7th grade. And then it moves when actually Justice Smith pops into the movie. He begins the movie, and then you have another actor, a young actor, playing him as a kid in the 7th grade. And part of me wishes that Justice Smith didn't show up until he hit the adult version of himself until the 8 years later. That even when they moved on and they moved it forward 2 years, that it was still the actor in the beginning, because I believe it'd be more believable in my mind to have him, playing the, rather than Justice Smith, who's, he's quite old, but playing basically somebody that's in ninth grade, that'd be like 14. Yeah, he's a little bit on the younger side, but I just don't feel like it mixes that much. And maybe because of the subject matter of the movie, the overall tone, they decided to have an older actor play that because they didn't want it to be a younger kid. It's a possibility. I'm just throwing things out there. I don't know. It could be, but yeah, I felt like the kid should have kept on going. I don't think it should have been Justice Smith at that point, and not until they had the 8-year transition should it been Justice Smith. But he goes to the bleachers and goes to talk to her, and because he when he was a kid, right, he went back and he saw her at election night, and this was in 96. So yeah, it was actually in 96, and then it moved to 98, and that's, oh my god, I feel so fucking old when I say those things, because that's the year I graduated. But he's now entering high school in 98, right? Or he's a freshman in 98. So at 96, it's the presidential election with Bill Clinton, and he's there with his mom, going, and he sees her in the corner, and Maddie's reading the book on the Pink Opaque, and it's the like episode guide. It's like the web episode guide in book form, because she's totally obsessed with the show, and he was watching commercials and he wanted to see it, but again, like I said, his parents would never let him watch it, and he tried to stay up late. And so he formulates a plan with her where she basically says, look, my parents let me do whatever I want. My mom doesn't care. And my friend, she comes over it's either Angela or Amber. I can't remember the name of that character, but she's not in it for super long. But she watches it with her every Saturday night because she can stay up late, and, he goes over to the place and they're both hanging out watching it. And it's funny because like she goes outside, the friend goes outside to smoke, and then Maddie looks over at Owen and is just like, you can go out there too. He's like, I don't smoke cigarettes. And I looked at it and I'm like, that's either a black and tan or that's a fucking clove cigarette, because that would have been like some people I knew back in the day and the way that they were with this. And even then, like, not just watching the X-Files, this made me feel like watching Are You Afraid of the Dark, right? Used to watch that with my cousins a lot when I was younger. But like staying up late to watch that type of show, where it's cheesy, right? But as a kid, it had its scares to it, and that's the way that this show felt like. But yeah, she goes, oh, that's not a cigarette. That's a Black and Mild. And I was like, or Black and, yeah, I think Black and Mild. And I was like, yep, I knew it. I knew it was funny that she said something like right when my thoughts entered my mind, saying that's not a cigarette. I was like, that's a clove, And so it's funny to like have that nostalgia, and I love that part of the movie. I love the feeling, like getting that time period right, and actually like making me think of, and watching the show made me think of all those old cheesy young adult shows that were like kind of horror shows but not really totally horror, and having like good effects too. I really loved the way that the Ice Cream Man, when they showed him when he's watching the show for the first time, loved the way that it looks. But it's just, there were other things that were going on there that we get hints of later on in the movie, right? And so he really connects with the show, and he connects with the show in a specific way, right? And to the point that, she's making all these videotapes for him because he's not able to watch the show. And since he's not able to watch the show, she just records it, but they rarely talk. So they're sitting on the bleachers. I know I'm getting to that part. And, he's like, oh, have you been hanging out with what's her face? And she's like, no. She's like, she made this like, rumor that I went to touch her tit when I totally didn't do it, and they're sitting there. And like I said, this part's in the trailer where it's like, I like girls, right? And then they kind of go back and he's like, yeah. He's like, and then she asks him, do you like girls? He's like, I don't know. Do you like boys? I really don't know either. I like TV shows. And then he goes into like, he feels like he's missing a piece of himself. Like he doesn't have a heart. When somebody asks him those questions, that he doesn't have a feeling for that there. He just doesn't understand it, and just doesn't know what to talk about or how to express those feelings. And every time he does, he just feels like he throws more dirt on top of it, and he just kind of buries it away, right? And that becomes poignant for the rest of the movie in the way that everything else works, because he goes one more time over to her place to watch it, and then she draws the ghost symbol because the show is about two girls that met at a sleepaway camp. Not that sleepaway camp. I thought about it too, but I think that's just a reference. But they met at a sleepaway camp, and they realized that they had like a psychic connection. And there's Mr. Malcontent. I think that was the name of Mr. Melancholy, not Malcontent. Why the fuck was I thinking Malcontent? I don't know. But Mr. Melancholy lives in the moon. And Mr. Melancholy does all the monsters of the week because it's a monster of the week show, right? And so, she tells this girl that she meets, Isabella. So it's Tara and Isabella, right? And Tara meets Isabella, tells Isabella all about Mr. Melancholy and the moon. And I love that he's got two moon minions named Marco Polo in it too. Like it's the perfect amount of cheese. They did this show so well that I actually want to see the show. And actually I could have watched a whole movie that was just this show, right? And incorporated it just a little bit more instead of a couple of other things. But nonetheless, so that's what they get from like the very first episode and how they meet the show. And she's making him all the things, and like he really starts, like I said, connecting with it. And when he's over there, the girls have this like pink ghost on the back of their neck that glows whenever they are going to use their powers, right? Or their psychic connection starts like connecting to them, I guess. And so she takes a pen and draws on the back of his neck, right? That ghost. And then like when he falls asleep, he goes into the bathroom and he scrubs it off as much as he can because he doesn't want his parents to see it, and she wants to run away, basically. Basically is telling him like, look, we'll leave tomorrow. Nobody will know we're gone. You don't tell anybody and we'll be gone forever. And then he's been lying to his parents saying he's going to sleep over at his friend Jimmy's place, but he's not going to go sleep over at Jimmy's. Instead, he's been going over there to hang out there. And then he ends up sleeping over and has to leave in the morning before her stepdad gets up because her stepdad, from what I gathered, is like beating her mom. Right. And even like he's a domestic abuser because she even says at one point that he finds him there, that she's going to get another black eye and a broken nose like last time. Right. So the stepdad's really abusive to both him and her. And that's, affecting the home life. And for both of them, the escape is the Pinko Pick. Right. And I love fucking saying that too. Like it just rolls off your tongue perfectly. These are the things that I really like about the movie. But what I don't like is, Maddie is really stiff and they're really like kind of forcing, not forcing is the wrong word, but they're making it really apparent that, she's meant to be butch, right? Just with the voice and the way that they're doing it and even her actions. And maybe I'm totally wrong. I could be completely 100% wrong in that. And I do apologize if I am, but that's the way it feels to me. Is that, and they seem to be going well out of the way, and it's not just the fact that she's saying I like girls, and they're definitely, at this point I am getting the vibes that they are talking about like him transitioning and not being his true self, right? And a lot of it is him constantly trying to hide it. That he goes there, he loves the show, but he hides the show away, even though it's quote unquote a girl show. But again, like the Powerpuff Girls, this would be some shit that I'd watch, or even like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I think most people are going to connect it to because it's a female protagonist. But I think it's more Are You Afraid of the Dark than it is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, since it was made for kids. But a good example of like a girls show that I absolutely loved was Powerpuff Girls. That was specifically made for girls. It specifically was empowering for girls. I thought it was one of the most badass cartoons that was ever made. It'd be like nowadays with boys. Well, not even nowadays. I don't even know if that's a thing. And that fucking makes me feel old. But sometime in the mid 2000s when we had bronies, right, with My Little Pony and dudes liking a chick show like My Little Pony, it's the same thing here. He hides it from his parents. He's hiding it from everybody in the school. He has all the tapes put away, but he's always constantly watching them. And he's telling us. And I love how, like, he'll be the narrator and then he'll turn to face the camera. He'll be off to the side, kind of looking like this. And then he just turns and he starts talking directly to the audience. I like that technique. And I liked how it made you feel immersive with Owen. And again, I think that when Owen is meant to be this unsure, quiet, doesn't want to bother anybody, doesn't, he's himself. He's just, he's unsure, he's shy, and he only opens up when he watches the show with Maddie, right? And when he's just so enamored with it, that's like his getaway where he's just dreaming about being there. And there are scenes where they do show like, and it's very quick, and it's only a couple times where they overlay Isabel's face with his face, right? To give you that, again, that hint, that nugget, that that's what this is truly about. And the question then becomes, as we get towards the end of the movie, is what is real, what is not? Because when we fast forward 8 years into the future, he's working kind of a dead end job at the movie theater, and then you see that he's still struggling with everybody. His mom dies from cancer. And so he's living with his dad, who's very indifferent to him. His dad just sits down in front of the TV and is constantly watching TV, and even when he gets home, there's one really creepy scene when he gets home and his dad's just staring at him. And it's just the way that the light hits him. And then like, it feels like he's got this black, it's almost like it feels polygonal in his face and that he's not quite real. Right. And he's just staring at his son. And I really like the way that scene's done. Again, there are horror tropes in this, but I don't feel that it's a horror movie in general because most of this stuff is not, it's not really even psychological horror. It's just kind of there, right? In the way that it does it. And it's just, again, it's a coming of age transition movie is really what it is. So eventually he runs into Maddie after he's getting out of his job, right? And, Maddie basically then tells him, because she disappears one night, like the night that they were supposed to leave, all of a sudden there's stuff that happens at the house. Then her TV is left outside burning and she's just completely gone. And really, when she comes back, like the assumption is that she runs away, which she does tell. She's like, yeah, I ran away. I spent a couple years. I was just getting older and older and older. And it just felt like time was just moving so quick to a point, that I ended up having to leave one area, change my name again to go back to another area. And then there was this creepy kid that was really into me. And she basically decided to kill herself. And the way she was doing, she bought a coffin, she put it in the ground, and she had the creepy kid then put the dirt on top of her and bury her alive. And in doing so, that then brought her into the world of the pink opaque. And she found out that she was actually Tara in the show. And she's trying to convince Owen that he was Isabel. And that he really is Isabel. Again, in a great scene that they have where he has to, like, she asks him to watch the final episode again. And when you're watching it in, like, that Tara gets captured, and then Isabel, she thinks that she's meeting up with Tara, but no, it's really Marco Polo capturing her. And then they rip out her heart. They rip out both of their hearts, but they're still beating and they're stuck in a deep freeze. And then you get Mr. Melancholy as this giant fucking moon face. And it's funny because they do show it a bit, and it's like that old, if you've ever seen the music video for Melancholy and Infinite Sadness and you see what the moon looks like there, it's like that. And it's an older movie. I just forget what the name of the movie is called that has the moon like that. But you have that, and then you get this really creepy, like, practical effects / CGI, like, moon face that's on a body in a suit and is like pouring stuff and making her drink this like juice, and this moon juice that is gonna slowly kill her and poison her. And then they bury her in the ground as well. And that's a really good creepy scene, and I love, like, that part of it makes me love it so much. And then afterwards, it's fucking, he like bashes his head into the TV, right? And his dad comes to help him, and there's just all this light and sound, and I couldn't tell at times, and it would be something to go see it again. I don't know what movie was playing next door, but the whole theater was rumbling. I don't know if it was the movie, or it was the movie next door, or it was the movie that we were watching that was putting these rumblings in. If it was this movie that was doing it, that's bravo, because it really made you feel unnerving during the scenes that you needed to feel unnerving in, right? To give you that kind of like shook feeling that he was feeling, like that he was hearing things and it was like trying to reach him, but it couldn't quite reach him. Like, if that's the case, that's a bravo. That would definitely make it a much higher. It would take it off. But if it was the movie next door, well, then that just timed up perfectly to give you those feelings in there. is that whole theater was just rumbling in the way that it was doing. And it was weird. And the more I think about it, I'm like, it really fit those specific moments because it happened like during this scene. And like his dad's trying to pull him out from the TV and he's screaming. He's trying, no, I need to go back in there. I need to go back because he wants to go into the world of the TV show. Right. And it's crazy that in the way that it's done. But what I didn't like a lot before this scene happens, when Maddie's trying to explain the whole thing to him about her life, what she's been doing, and the fact how she found out that she's Tara and that he really is Isabel and that he needs to go with her and meet her up later, is they do this scene in a bar. And it's if you've ever been to a bar with a stage before, ever been to a local show, it's like a local band that's playing, and we basically get like a music video. And I feel like that, and then we even get one after this scene. And yeah, and it's like honestly, it's a transition of two different types of caricatures that we have there, where we've got the whole band and she's like very glamorous and beautiful and singing. And then when we go away from that, it's a very dark goth type of singer that we have there on stage, and very like a little more aggressive. So it's like, again, I think it's like the characters that they have. It's the Tara, or actually the Isabel and Tara, or the Owen and the Maddie. In my opinion, I think Maddie is the second singer that's there. Whereas when we get into it, that's the Owen that you have there. And but I hated that music part took up so much of the film, where I think that it could have gone into other places and still kind of proved your point. Like, it just seemed like it was too much, right? It was excess in the way that maybe you're trying to tell a story or you're trying to get your message across, and it's just a little bit too much. It's not in your face excess, right? I don't think any in this thing in this movie is in your face. Once you kind of get it, you're like, okay, some people might see it that way. I think that they're wrong that it's excessive, personally. I think that it's just right, but I think that these scenes, especially when we're doing the music, like, I feel it's just like, I get a music video in the middle of this. Why? Why do I need to spend 2 or 3 minutes on this song that it's okay? I mean, the soundtrack is pretty good. Not everything hits for me personally, and maybe for some people it's going to. And I would rather have a whole song of the second song that was played. I think that was much better, but I just don't need either of them. Like, as music to do transitions for scenes or to express the scene that you're in, I think it's fine. But like that whole like music video, it's too much. And again, even some of the stuff in the beginning just feels like it was way too slow. And there was things that I missed. I want to talk that more towards the end of everything, because I don't know them, right? And if you know things and things that you see, and I do like, there's one scene where he's like, and before I continue on with the movie, but he's walking down the hallway of the school when he's like now a freshman in the high school, and the words that are on the wall make way more sense. And that one of them is like courage and pride and all these stuff that are like school slogans, but the last one being courage, and it's very focused on, makes sense in terms of the theme of the movie in general. So after she explains to him, like, look, come back to me on midnight tomorrow. I'll be there, and that's the last time I'm going to be here, because we're going to go back, and I need you to go back so we can start the next season. And then, he has the traumatizing thing, and he decides that he's going to go. And that's where she tries to tell him, you need to start looking inside yourself. And even during the other scene in the bar, like, we get these flashes of him dressing as Isabel, right? I keep wanting to call her Isabella too, but I know it's just Isabel. And so, and we get more of that as she's like explaining everything to him, and how she, how they need to continue the fight, and that he can't win, and that, she's found their hearts, and the only way that they can do it is to be buried alive once again, and they'll get back, and she can get it back, and they can stop Mr. Melancholy and continue on the show. And, then when they go out into the football field, he's like totally into it. And again, it's like, we had a scene of them walking the football field with him in the dress, and him actually looking like he's happy, right? and then and he's being led by her, and he's being led by her here again, but he like shuts that out, and he just fucking gang tackles her. Um, it's you know it's crazy in that, and then he just runs off. And she just kind of looks at him and she kind of smiles, and then that's the last he ever heard of Maddie. And then we go into him as he's getting towards the end of his life, and this is like the last maybe 15 minutes of the movie that we've got here. And so he decides that his father dies. He doesn't decide that his father dies, but his father dies, and then he ends up having a family of his own, and he's just living a mundane life because the movie theater closed down, and now he's working at a kid's like play place, almost like a Round One, if you've ever been in a Round One before, right? But Round One also is kind of adult at the same time, but it's that type of like kids arcade ball pit. Like he was like, I went from working in the theater to taking out the balls from the ball pit and exchanging the balls. So he's got a mundane job, he's got a mundane life, but he's got a family, and he says he wouldn't trade his family for anything in the world. And then he's getting older, and eventually when we get to the very ending of the movie, he's still working there. He's old. He's like, we hear the breathing, and that's where we see like Isabel and him being like put on top of each other. And then he has like a birthday party that he's got to do, and he freaks the fuck out during the birthday party. And I like, again, these are the type of scenes that I really like him in. Like he gets there, and then all of a sudden he looks at everybody, and everybody's just hanging their heads, and they're silent, not paying attention to him. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. Like he's having this panic attack inside of himself. But is it the panic attack? The question becomes, is it the panic attack because he's realizing that, yeah, he truly is Isabella in the TV show, and that he should have gone with Maddie and he made a mistake, right? Or is it because of just the fear of death and him not coming to terms with himself? And so he goes into the bathroom, and this is like I guess you'd say the big shocking scene, where he's laying on the bathroom floor. He's an old man now, and he's really like gaunt and everything like that. And he's on the bathroom floor, and they're asking, is he okay? He's like, yeah, I'll be fine. And he takes a box cutter and he cuts down and opens his chest up, right? But nothing happens to him. And then he goes to the mirror and he opens his chest like he's Superman, revealing the S here. But instead, it's the TV and it's the pink opaque that's playing on the inside. And he then begins to smile. And as he walks out of the place, he begins apologizing to everybody, but he's more like happy-go-lucky. And, but nobody even bats an eye at him. And so there are two thoughts to the ending that you have here, right? And one is that he finally accepted himself, and he accepted the transition, and he's going to be living his true self on the inside. And that's what made him, it took him this long to realize what Maddie was trying to tell him the entire time, right? Or do we take it literally in that he really was Isabel, right? And maybe at this point, because of the way that he reacts after everything is done, did Isabel actually die and now he's living on his life and the way that it is? Or did he just come to accept that that's what it is? But it really is a lot more, I think, about the transition and him finding himself after so long and now becoming comfortable with that, right? And maybe if he had just done it earlier, he wouldn't have had the life that he had. That's basically everything that's there. And I'm just looking, because I did write notes after I got to the car, and I'm just trying to make sure that I hit a bunch of the stuff. Yep, I definitely would watch the Pink Opaque. Again, good practical effects in the movie. That's there. Like I said, Justice Smith's acting is okay. The ending, I think, is a little problematic, and it's fitting. It definitely is. And I don't like that it just kind of ends. Like it's not okay. Problematic is the wrong word to say, and I know I'm bouncing off a little bit in the back of my head and everything, and looking at these notes that I wrote down that I should have been looking at the entire time. But I wouldn't say it's problematic. I just don't like that it ends like just right there. It ends like it's a happy ending, yeah. Again, but I think that's because that I don't connect to certain things in this story. Again, it's about the transition. I'm not somebody that feels that needs to transition, right? And that's why I was talking about, like I said, I'd get back to it earlier. There are signs of this throughout there. The stuff in the hallway in the school is pretty obvious and blatant, and I wish I had read more of everything that was going on so I could remember it. But in the very beginning of the movie, they are playing in one of those. I loved doing these things as a kid. There's so much stuff in the beginning of this movie. I was just like, oh man, this takes me back to my goddamn childhood. But you remember playing with the parachutes at gym, right? You'd throw the parachute up into the air, and then everybody would sit under it so that it gets the traps the air on the inside, and then you can just like run through it. And you used to play different games and stuff inside there. Well, what I didn't realize is that the colors that are on the inside are the colors of the trans flag, right? I really am not familiar with it, so I don't connect that. And the fact that he's looking at it up in amazement and he's running his fingers alongside of it. I get that now. And as it collapsed too, he's just curious as why it's collapsing down all around him. And then we cut out of that scene. Those are things that I do not have a connection to. And if you had a connection to, or other people do, they would probably gather things right away. Like pink and purple are heavily used in this movie. Those colors, all the colors of the trans pride flag are used throughout this movie constantly. And that would be a hint to me. It's why the color scheme goes the way it is. So, yeah, I wish there was more Isabel overlays with Owen and Isabel. I really do like the scenes that take place at Maddie's place. I was not a very big fan of Maddie's actress that much. I maybe it's just me, and maybe things just didn't click that well. I didn't think the character was bad. I just didn't think the actress was super good. And I think there's there's one more thing that's just weird to me. And maybe it's different for different people, but I just didn't see the actor as a young kid playing Owen growing up into Justice Smith. I just didn't see it. He just didn't look the same. And when I was a kid, I get it. For me, I'm older. I've been inside a lot more than I used to be. In my family, I was the darkest out of my family for the longest time. Now it's my cousin. My cousin is quite a bit darker than I am. I can still darken up if I go outside more, or if I'm at like a festival or something like that. I'll get a really good deeper tan, and everything will be more congruent. But if you looked at what's underneath the shirt, that's when my Caucasian side shows out, because I am mixed. All right. And but here I understand that they are, but it just, there's a contrast, and it just doesn't work. But like I said, I would have really liked to have seen that kid more in the second act than Justice Smith right away, because I think that would have been more impactful in the way that the movie worked. So that's it. Did you guys see the movie? Were you interested in the movie? Let me know in the comments below. I have to be very selective with this one, because like I said, I know that it's going to have issues with some people, and that sucks. And it shouldn't. You should just be, do you like the film? Do you not like the film? And I don't fault anybody for not liking this film, because it doesn't feel like a real horror movie. And maybe if I was connected to that side of the community, and I actually was dealing with a lot of that struggle that goes on there, that, hey, maybe it's more of a horror movie than I thought. So I don't know. Again, but I think 3 out of 5 is solid for this movie. And even the more I talked about it, again, like I was on the fence. I think I'm liking a lot more than I did. It's the same thing what happened. It Comes at Night. I think when I first came out of that, and as I began talking about it more, I started liking it more and more and more. And the things that I really liked about this movie, and the scenes I really liked about this movie, are good. But I think that some of the slower pacing to the movie definitely hurts it. I guess the musical numbers could just be cut out completely. And I think that, I wanted a little more life out of Owen, and when he had the life, and I get it, because the character is meant to be that way, I just wish that he just had a little bit more in him. I don't know. I think that he didn't need to be as melancholy as he was. And again, that could just be me. But so make sure, if you haven't already checked it out, if you like this stuff, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. The channel, I appreciate. There's, again, been a lot more people that have subscribed to the channel. I totally appreciate you guys. Thank you for helping me build this small little channel a little bit bigger over every week. I do really appreciate it. I'm working on doing a review also for Imaginary. I know that's late, but I did not get a chance to see it when it came out. It's recently been out on VOD, so I'm going to sit down and watch it. I'm not doing a full podcast on it, but doing a review for the channel I think would be fun. There is going to be a new podcast that's going to be available soon. That's going to be on Leprechaun 4, Leprechaun in Space. So go check that out on all podcasting platforms. All the links for everything should be in the description. And then I am always out there on Twitch. Right now I'm up there a lot more often than not. So come join me, twitch.tv/Terrible Terrors. I'm on Pacific Standard Time, because I am a hippie California boy. So, come join me, say hi, say you're from the YouTube channel, and I appreciate it. So, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll check you next time, and take care of yourselves and each other, and see you soon. Bye, guys.